විම් දියර මිලිලීටර් 100 ස්මාර්ට් පැක් එක රුපියල් 85ට දැන් වෙළඳ පොලේ.
හරිම සුමුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Saturday the 11th of March 2023. Air pollution in Colombo reported unhealthy during afternoon hours. NBR and the Central Environment Authority however urges public not to panic. The role of youth. Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena calls on young entrepreneurs to provide their contribution in supporting towards economic recovery.
The state is going through much needed and procrastinated reforms. These will leave greater trust and more opportunity on the private sector.
Judicial independence. The Bar Association says the recent statements made by SLPP MP Premanath Dolavatta and State Minister Finance Shayan Singh in Parliament have undermined the independence of the judiciary. Optimal investment. Chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange reveals the best investment options at the Colombo Bourse currently.
Specifically with regard to equity investments, it must be noted that this is probably the most tax-efficient asset class available to an investor.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Andrew Bernard. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුමකට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරම.
Very good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. In your top story for tonight, the quality of air in the country has once again dropped, with Colombo recording unhealthy levels of air pollution at 172 air quality points this afternoon. However, according to the National Building Research Organization, this condition is expected to subside in the course of time. Further, the Deputy Director General of the Central Environment Authority has echoed a similar opinion, stating that the air quality levels in the country will be better in the near future.
Air quality in Sri Lanka has dropped once again, with Colombo recording unhealthy levels of air pollution at 172 AQ points this afternoon. Last year, Sri Lanka experienced similar conditions due to increased dust particles brought into the island from India with the heavy winds. Similarly, fog and misty conditions were observed today in several parts of the island, including Colombo. This phenomenon is due to a drop in air quality levels due to the increase of dust particles in the atmosphere. According to the National Building Research Organization, if the air quality index of a certain area is between 0 and 50, the air quality is satisfactory and air pollution poses little or no risk. However, if the index exceeds 151 AQ points, the air quality is considered to be unhealthy and many people can experience various health effects, while sensitive groups will be subjected to serious complications. In this backdrop, according to NBRO's real-time air quality monitoring system, air quality in Colombo stood at an unhealthy level of pollution at 172 AQI points today as of 3:30 p.m. Further, air quality in Badulla district also stood at unhealthy levels of pollution. Meanwhile, the air quality of Batiklo, Trincomalee, Kurunagala and Kandy areas were observed to be at moderate levels. However, speaking to AdaDerana English, senior scientist of the National Building Research Organization, Sarath Premasiri, stated that the situation is expected to subside eventually. He further assured the general public that there should be no undue fear of the situation. Meanwhile, the Deputy Director General of the Central Environmental Authority echoed a similar opinion, stating that the air quality levels will be better in the near future.
We are regularly monitoring the air pollution with our main two equipments located in Battaramulla and Kandy. Recently, that recorded little bit higher values of the air pollution, especially particulate matter 2.5. And we recently noticed that the air quality index was around 130. But now we notice that it will be better in near future. That's the current situation.
Now, the Executive Director of the People's Action for Free and Fair Elections, Rohana Hettiarachchi, says that there is a concerted effort taken by the Executive to postpone the local government election by suppressing the judiciary and the Constitution. He added that the representatives of the people are curtailing the general public's ability to enjoy their privileges, while forgetting that the representatives enjoyed their privileges because the general public elected them before all else.
Commissioner General of the Election Commission Saman Ratnapriya announced yesterday that the extraordinary Gazette notification stating the new date for the local government election as the 25th of April has been sent to all district returning officers. The Secretary to the Ministry of Finance stated that the request made by the Election Commission to release the necessary funds required has been brought to the notice of the Finance Minister. Chairman of the Election Commission Nimalji Punchiheva said that the Finance Ministry Secretary had made this known through a letter which was sent to the Ministry of Finance. Meanwhile, the Department of Government Printing noted that they had not received a response from the Ministry of Finance regarding the request that had been made by the department requesting funds to be released for the printing of ballot papers. In the meantime, the People's Action for Free and Fair Elections commented on the recent developments regarding the local government election.
Don't use the executive to try and suppress the judiciary and the constitution. It is also clearly visible now that apart from the steps taken by the executive, there are also attempts to use the constitution to postpone the election. Currently, it is clear that the representatives of the people are hiding behind their privileges and are trying to postpone the elections. They have forgotten that they are privy to their privileges only because the people gave it to them. They are talking about their privileges by forgetting and violating the rights of the people who got them to their positions.
Now, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka criticised the statements of SLPP MP Premanatsi Dolawatta and State Minister of Finance Shehan Semasinga made in Parliament, stating that the recent interim order issued by the Supreme Court to prevent the withholding of funds allocated for the election in Budget 2023 violates parliamentary privileges. The BSL says that both statements undermine the independence of the judiciary and added that any attempt to interfere with the independence of the judiciary is a serious affront to the rule of law and the rights of the people of the country. On the 3rd of March, the Supreme Court issued an interim order to the Secretary of the Ministry of Finance and the Attorney General, preventing the withholding of funds allocated for elections in the Budget 2023. The decision was made following the consideration of a writ petition filed by the General Secretary of the Samagi Janabalawegaya, Ranjit Madhuma Bandara. On the 7th of March in Parliament, parliamentarian of the Sri Lanka Pudujana Perumana Premanatsi Dolawatta raised a matter of privilege, stating that the interim order issued by the Supreme Court is a breach of privileges and powers of Parliament. Further, Dolawatta requested the Speaker of Parliament Mahinda Yapabe Wardana to refer the matter to the Committee on Parliamentary Privileges. Meanwhile, in Parliament yesterday, State Minister of Finance Shehan Semasinga also commented on the privilege matter raised by MP Premanatsi Dolawatta.
As you are aware, Honorable Premanatsi Dolawatta raised a question of privilege in this Parliament regarding the interim order referred to the case number SC/FR/69/2023. The letter bearing number F/03/2023 dated 8 March 2023 submitted by the Chairman of the Elections Commission on the same subject to the Honorable Minister of Finance, Economic Stabilization and National Policies has further breached the privileges of the Honorable Members of this House. In the condition, Honorable Speaker has accepted the question of breach of privileges raised by Honorable Premanatsi Dolawatta and presented it to the Committee on Parliamentary Ethics and Privileges. It is a serious offence to implement the interim order of the aforesaid case before hearing the said matter and making a decision. By tabling the letter of the Chairman of the Elections Commission, I request the Honourable Deputy Speaker to refer the same matter to the Committee of Parliamentary Ethics and Privileges to conduct an inquiry. Further, by raising this privilege matter, I request the Honourable Deputy Speaker to advise all relevant authorities not to proceed further or take any action on the above said matter until the Privileges Committee concludes its inquiry.
Issuing a statement today, the Bar Association of Sri Lanka criticised the statements made by both SLPP MP Dolawatta and State Minister of Finance Shehan Semasinga. The BASL is of the view that both statements constitute an interference with the judicial process and undermine the independence of the judiciary in Sri Lanka. The BSL said the independence of the judiciary is part of the intangible heritage of the people of Sri Lanka, and all organs of the state must recognise that an independent judiciary is essential to ensure that justice be done between the citizen and the state and between citizens. The association also mentioned that they view any attempt to interfere with the independence of the judiciary as a serious affront to the rule of law and the rights of the people of the country, and added that such affronts to the independence of the judiciary will compromise the ability of the court to do justice according to law, irrespective of the parties. Further, they called on the government to refrain from undermining the independence of the judiciary in Sri Lanka. Now, Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena called on the young Lankan entrepreneurs to contribute more towards the economy during this tough period and attract more investments to Sri Lanka. Addressing the 24th anniversary celebration of the Young Chamber of Sri Lankan Entrepreneurs, the Premier said that much-needed reforms implemented by the government at present will provide more opportunities to the private sector.
The 24th anniversary celebration of the Chamber of Young Lankan Entrepreneurs was held last evening under the patronage of Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena.
Our parliamentary democracy have restored economic order and proven that our democracy delivers and continue to function as Asia's oldest, counting over 90 years of parliamentary democracy. As you are aware, the state is going through much needed and procrastinated reforms. These will leave greater trust and more opportunity on the private sector. For example, sectors like hospitality, trade, where our private sector has proven they are better at it, much more capable, and in running businesses successfully in other fields too. Our collective efforts, led by the government and related agencies, have proven we are able to manage crisis in a systematic way and still believe in greater opportunities. The post-COVID world is crippling economies right across the world. And with the successful financial negotiations, we have just proven we are even more capable of transforming more global crises into greater opportunities. Chambers like COIL are even more capable of collaborating with international chambers, the diplomatic community, and overseas Sri Lankans to expand exports while attracting investment into our country. We have confident chambers like COIL to deliver the much needed economic diplomacy, and not only in the capital cities, but importantly in a greater galaxy of business community hubs across the world. My office is willing to listen to you all often and more often, willing to provide more than before, make a synergy among our collective efforts. Our government is here to facilitate requirements towards greater enhancements, especially those coming from the chambers. During these hardships, my appeal to you is to try more avenues on how to empower a better day for those less fortunate in our society. Together as one people, we have to stride the hard times. I don't have to convince you that Asia, on an exponential growth in all accounts, and economic fronts being one of the important sectors, collectively, Asia will redefine this century as theirs. In that, defining Sri Lanka is right there at one of the key central points. Food, health, energy, environment will be some of the most important topics. We'll have to collectively program and develop to transform challenges into sustainable and ethical opportunities for the entrepreneurial leaders. As announced and proclaimed by His Excellency President Ranil Wickremesinghe, let us remember the march from tomorrow onwards and for the next 25 years is an important one for all of us. So let's join in this journey together. We must plan ahead well and implement the for perfection.
Now, Foreign Affairs Minister Ali Sabri says that as the trajectory of global economic growth shifts towards Asia, the trade and investment component of the BIMSTEC countries need to be revitalized to stay alert. Minister Ali Sabri made these remarks addressing the 19th Ministers' meeting of the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral, Technical and Economic Cooperation, held in virtual mode on the 9th of March 2023. He further opined on the need to strengthen the collaborative efforts to enhance intra-regional trade, focusing on each country's comparative advantages, emphasizing that BIMSTEC should take the lead in becoming a conduit to build a robust and dynamic private sector network to enhance the flow of trade and investment. In this context, the minister reiterated that Sri Lanka's commitment to working proactively in areas of trade and investment and extended Sri Lanka's full support to build a transnational network of business entities, which would spur intra-regional investments to create transformative economic growth to all. The meeting deliberated on important agenda items such as the BIMSTEC Bangkok Vision 2030, the agreement on the maritime transport connectivity, and the establishment of a group eminent persons of the BIMSTEC, among many others. And stay with us to find out what the best investment options are available at the Colombo Stock Exchange at the moment. All this and much more coming up right after this short commercial break.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන් කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්.
Welcome back. Now, the chairman of the Colombo Stock Exchange states that equity investments are the most tax-efficient asset class available at the moment in the backdrop of the recent tax hikes. Adding on to these sentiments, he further stated that they plan on introducing stock borrowings and lending as some of the very first products for the CSE, which would eventually be followed by gold-backed products and green products as well.
In terms of the tax benefits that accrue through investing in the Colombo Stock Exchange, specifically with regard to equity investments, it must be noted that this is probably the most tax-efficient asset class available to an investor. Currently, capital gains made from buying and selling shares are exempt from any tax, that is personal tax, as well as dividends received by companies which are currently taxed at 15% would be a final tax. So these compare well with the personal income tax rate of 36%. So this is by far the most tax efficient asset class available for investors. The CSE also hopes to introduce new products. We are currently having equity and debt as our products, but there are plans to again introduce new products this year. And some of the first on the cards to come through will be stock borrowing and lending. That would then lead to regulated short selling. We've already introduced overnight repo and secondary market trading activities of listed debt. We will look at gold-backed products. We will look at green products, blue bonds. There is discussions to look at infrastructure bonds. There is also the dollar board available, and from an issuer perspective, we are looking at furthering the SME board, the Empower board, and encourage more SMEs to list on the Colombo Stock Exchange and raise capital via the CSE.
Now, the luxury passenger ship Princess Crew docked at the Colombo port this morning with nearly 2,000 passengers on board. According to the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Aviation, the passengers in the vessel on board consisted of 1,894 tourists and 906 crew members. A group of 159 tourists who had come aboard have already left the port and are scheduled to visit Kandy, Pinnavela, Negombo and Ingiriya. Further, the Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Aviation said that the 294-meter-long ship, which belongs to an American company, arrived from Thailand and is due to leave for Dubai tonight. According to the Sri Lanka Tourism Development Authority, nearly 25,000 tourists have arrived in Sri Lanka within the first week of March, while a total of 234,547 tourists have arrived in the island for 2023 thus far. Now, Sri Lanka earned $407.4 million from migrant workers' foreign remittances in February 2023. This figure is a $30 million decline compared to the figure recorded in January 2023, which is $437.5 million. According to the Minister of Labour and Foreign Employment, Manusha Nanaikara, February 2023's figure is a 98.8% or a $202.5 million increase compared to the inflows recorded in February last year, which stood at $204.9 million in February 2022. Now, the Silicon Valley Bank, one of America's largest and top league banks, collapsed yesterday after a stunning 48-hour in which a bank run and a capital crisis led to a second largest failure of a financial institution in US history. Stock markets across the globe saw its impact, while bank stocks were among the hardest hit globally.
US regulators yesterday shut down Silicon Valley Bank and took control of its customer deposits in the largest failure of a US bank. The move came as the firm, a key tech lender, was scrambling to raise money to recover losses from the sale of assets affected by high interest rates. While relatively unknown outside of Silicon Valley, the bank was among the top 20 American commercial banks with $209 billion in total assets at the end of last year. Its stunning and seemingly rapid fall is the largest retail banking failure since the 2008 financial meltdown. The wheels began to come off on Wednesday when the Silicon Valley Bank announced it had sold a series of securities at a loss and that it would sell $2.25 billion in new shares to show up its balance sheet. The news caused customers and investors to flee the bank. Speaking in Washington, US Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen yesterday said that she is monitoring recent developments at Silicon Valley Bank and others very carefully. She later met with top banking regulators. During the meeting, the US Treasury Department chief said she expressed full confidence in banking regulators to take appropriate actions in response and noted that the banking system remains resilient.
And that's all the news we have for this evening. Join us again tomorrow for the very latest news at the very same time. Subscribe to our social media pages to stay updated. Have a pleasant evening and good night.
For news and information you can trust 24 hours a day, visit AdaDerana.lk.